When the drought came, the villagers said the mountain was reclaiming its tears. But to Dr. Layla Orhan, it was a data set. Decline curves, watt quantified in centimeters per day. Then, as the lake bed cracked open, sunlight revealed something that didn't belong. A perfect ring of stone spiraling beneath centuries of silt. No known map showed it. No text described it. She called her mentor, Professor Jonathan Hale, and together they brought a team and a fleet of pumps. As the lake drained, the earth shuddered, exhaling the scent of iron and ancient pollen. What emerged was impossible. Columns of limestone carved with spirals that turned inward, not outward, as if designed to pull the eye and the soul into their center. Lai's breath caught. For the first time in her career, she didn't feel like she was uncovering history. She felt like she was trespassing into something alive. By noon, the lake had become a wound under the sun. Layla moved through the excavation like a trespasser in her own discovery. The spiral's alignment refused all logic. It tilted west of the solstice, following a celestial pattern no civilization here should have known. Hale offered theories of lost cults, pre-Hittite cosmologies, sacred geometry long erased, but his voice sounded distant against the mechanical hum. Locals stood at the ridgeline whispering lake prayers, clutching charms of bone and copper. In copper, when Layla unearthed a fragment of obsidian polished to mirror perfection, she saw herself reflected. And for a moment, another face behind hers. She looked again. Nothing. Yet the feeling lingered, heavy as the heat. What slept here had only been waiting to be disturbed. That evening, the wind turned colder, the color of the light sharpening to a bruised gold. Layla reviewed the drone footage inside the temporary field tent. The hum of generators competing with her heartbeat. Every frame of the spiral seemed alive, shifting, breathing, as if the stones remembered something. Hale joined her, his face drawn in thought. "We might be looking at a culture older than writing itself," he said softly, but his tone held no triumph. Outside, Emre watched the sunset mirrored in the shallow pools. For a moment, the water's surface rippled with shapes, figures kneeling, heads bowed, frozen in the act of prayer. When Seelan stepped out to film, her camera caught nothing. Only the reflection of the setting sun and the faint sound of whispering reeds. That night, the wind carried voices. Not words, not sounds exactly, more like memory turned to vibration. The campfire flickered, and for a moment, the smell of the air changed. Not smoke, but resin and incense. Hale spoke of old texts mentioning temples built where the sky drank the sun. Lila stared into the fire. The image of the inverted sun relief burned behind her eyelids. Emre refused to sleep near the trenches. Seelan kept filming until her batteries died, claiming the light kept shifting without reason. Sometime past midnight, a gust swept through the site, and every puddle rippled at once, as if stirred by breath from beneath the earth. Before dawn, a storm broke over the mountains. Rain fell without thunder, silent and heavy, pooling in the exposed spiral. Layla awoke to find the trenches glowing faintly blue beneath the rain. When she stepped closer, her breath caught. The water wasn't reflecting light. It was emitting it softly, rhythmically, like the pulse of something alive. Hale reached her side, whispering a single word, "Resonance." In the distance, lightning flashed, revealing the full temple's form in silhouette. The lake, half drained, half awake, seemed to breathe. Somewhere beneath it, the past was stirring. Morning returned, pale and exhausted, like light remembered rather than born. The rain had receded, leaving the spiral half submerged in a shallow basin of milky water. Dr. Layla Orhan ordered pumps to resume, though part of her wished the lake would simply close itself again. As the water drained, dark openings appeared between the stones. Entrances, not cracks. Professor Hale whispered that no one carved voids like that without purpose. Emmer lowered a probe into the largest gap. Its camera revealed descending steps slick with clay, leading into blackness. The air around the hole vibrated faintly, a pressure that seemed to hum through their bones. Salen's footage caught the rippling distortion in the air before the signal cut. The lake bed exhaled once, and silence fell. Thick, expectant, alive. By afternoon, the team descended. The staircase beneath the spiral was narrow and ancient, its limestone slick with mineral sheen. Layla went first, headlamp trembling with each breath. The deeper they moved, the colder it became. The steps ended at a chamber whose walls were carved with swirling symbols, lines that mirrored the lake's spiral, converging at an altar made of jet-black stone. Hale muttered that the language was not Sumerian, not Luvian, not anything known. "Its geometry turned script," he whispered. The air smelled faintly of copper and lilac, impossible in this buried space. Emery set the light on the altar's surface, revealing a perfect circle carved at its center, deep enough to hold a single heart. That night, the camp felt different. The air no longer carried the scent of the lake, but of something older, metallic and sweet. Hale refused dinner, absorbed in sketches of the glyphs, tracing the symbols over and over like prayer. Selen played back her footage only to find the audio replaced by a low, rhythmic pulse. Emre sat by the fire, whispering that he'd heard voices below, singing from within the stones. Layla dismissed it until she reviewed her own recordings and saw, for a single frame, a figure behind her in the chamber, a woman draped in bronze veils, eyes like molten glass. The timestamp matched the exact moment she had felt a cold breath on her neck. The following day brought revelations and fractures. Hale's analysis confirmed the glyphs represented a pattern of harmonic resonance, not words but frequencies encoded in stone. A temple that sings. When Layla suggested they test the vibrations with sound mapping, the results came alive. The stones responded, humming faintly at 27 hertz, a frequency just below human hearing. The spiral became an instrument, and as its tone deepened, Layla felt her heartbeat stutter to match it. Emre dropped his tools, clutching his chest. The lake's surface trembled as if answering the call. Seelan's camera continued to roll, even after the power flickered out. At twilight, the spiral began to hum on its own. The frequency no longer came from their equipment, it came from below. Birds fled the valley. The mud at their feet shivered. Hale shouted for the generators to be shut down, but the sound only deepened, resonant, like an enormous breath drawn through stone. Layla saw movement beneath the water in the spiral's heart, a shimmer, a pulse, and for one impossible moment, she saw the temple whole, pristine, and alive. The air filled with chanting voices. When she blinked, the vision was gone, but the echo remained, whispering through the dusk, Arashuna. By dawn, the spiral had gone still, but the silence was worse than the sound. The team moved like ghosts, avoiding each other's eyes. Hale's instruments showed magnetic interference spreading from the center of the site, warping compasses and static charging the air. Lila ordered the trench widened, determined to locate the source of the resonance. When the final layer of mud gave way, a circular door emerged. Perfectly smooth, perfectly sealed, cut from obsidian that drank the light. Hale said it shouldn't exist. Emery said it was breathing. Seelan filmed as Layla reached forward, fingertips brushing the black surface. A single tremor rippled outward. Somewhere below, something responded. They worked for 12 hours to clear the disk's perimeter. Beneath its edge, the earth grew glassy, fused by some forgotten heat. The team discovered grooves carved like musical notations circling the seal. Hale translated their intervals into sound frequencies, tones that, when played, aligned with the site's earlier resonance. They set the generators to reproduce the sound. The ground shuddered once, softly, as if something massive had drawn a breath. The disk rotated, grinding against stone, and a plume of dust rose from the gap. Lai's heart hammered. "It's opening," Hale whispered, and the air seemed to answer in a whisper, not their own. Beyond the door lay a corridor lined with mirrored panels, each one reflecting not the explorers, but flickering images of robed figures moving in torchlight. The air was cold enough to frost their breath. Layla led the way, her light catching faint gold threads woven into the walls. Veins of metal, or perhaps veins of memory. At the corridor's end stood a chamber, circular and vast, its ceiling open to darkness. In its center, a statue rose. A woman draped in veils, carved from translucent quartz, eyes hollow yet radiant. Hale whispered the name from an inscription at its base, Arashuna. Layla stared at the statue's face and felt recognition bloom like fear. The statue's surface began to weep. Droplets of condensation formed and rolled down like tears. Hale set his palm against it and flinched. It was warm. The quartz vibrated faintly, resonating with the same tone the spiral once sang. As the hum deepened, images flooded Layla's mind. The lake full and shining, the temple alive with thousands chanting beneath torches. At the altar stood a priestess, Tamaris, her face both strange and familiar. When Layla's eyes opened, she was on her knees, trembling, the hum fading into her pulse. Hale's voice sounded distant, asking what she'd seen. She couldn't speak. The statue's eyes had closed. That night, the lake rose without rain. The pumps shut down on their own, and the air thickened with static. Hale argued they should leave. Document later, return with specialists. But Layla refused. She believed the visions were memories, not hallucinations, messages from the temple itself. In the distance, thunder rolled with no storm. Seelan's cameras caught shadows moving through fog, silhouettes of women chanting in a language no one had heard in millennia. As the sound reached the camp, the water line crept higher, swallowing the first tier of the spiral. The temple was awakening, and it wanted its offering back. The night deepened into a kind of unmeasured time. The sky hung low, violet and trembling. The spiral was gone beneath the rising water, yet the humming remained, spreading through the valley like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Layla refused to evacuate, her gaze fixed on the black surface where the temple had been. Hale paced the camp, muttering equations that no longer made sense, his rational world unraveling thread by thread. Emery swore he saw faces in the water, dozens, maybe hundreds, rising just beneath the surface. Seelan filmed in silence, every frame warping the camera lens, fogging from within. Then without sound, a column of light erupted from the lake's center, pure and vertical, cutting through the clouds. The hum ceased, and in that silence came a single voice, soft, feminine, and ancient, calling Layla's name. By morning, the light had vanished, but its afterimage burned into everything it touched. The spiral site was now a shimmering pool of glass-like water, motionless, depthless. Hale's compass spun without end. Every metal object in the camp had magnetized overnight. Emra tried to drain the basin again, but the pumps refused to start. When Layla stepped near the water's edge, ripples spread outward, though she had not moved. "It's responding," she whispered. She reached for a floating shard of quartz and froze. The reflection staring back was not her own. It was Tamaris, eyes open, lips forming a word lost to human speech. The water rippled again, and the reflection smiled. That afternoon, Hale discovered that the hum had not disappeared. It had moved. Sensors recorded it emanating from Layla herself. Every heartbeat resonated at 27 hertz, matching the temple's tone. She felt it too. A faint vibration in her bones, pulsing like memory. In the mirror of her tent, Tamaris' image began to appear behind her shoulder, clearer each time she blinked. "You're not losing your mind," Seelan said quietly. "She's using you." Hale insisted they leave before nightfall, but the valley would not let them. The wind rose, spiraling counter to the stars, and every puddle began to glow. As twilight fell, the resonance reached its crescendo. The wind carried voices now, choral, rhythmic, neither human nor inhuman. The team gathered at the water's edge, drawn by instinct rather than will. The surface began to part, revealing the top of the quartz statue beneath. Its veiled face rose through the rippling light, eyes closed, lips moving soundlessly. Hale fell to his knees, whispering fragments of forgotten prayers. Seelan's camera recorded the reflection of dozens of other figures surrounding the statue, women draped in bronze veils, their hands raised toward the dying sun. The air thickened with the scent of lilies and iron. Layla stepped forward, barefoot, the hum vibrating through her chest until it became her own breath. Then came the inversion, the lake itself rising in a column, weightless, suspended in the air. Every molecule of water glittered like dust, revealing the temple fully restored below, perfect and ancient, floating in midair. Layla stood at its threshold as the figure of Timoris stepped from the quartz, eyes open, voice resonant with the tone of the earth. "You have remembered," she said, not in words, but in vibration that shook the bones of the valley. Lay reached out, their hands meeting across 3,000 years. For a heartbeat, the world stilled. Then the column collapsed, falling in silence, drenching the site in light. When the mist cleared, the lake was gone, and so was Layla. When the light finally died, the world held its breath. The lake had vanished, leaving a crater of steam and mirrored stone. Silence hung heavy enough to feel. Professor Hale called for Layla, his voice breaking against the echo of emptiness. Only their footprints remained on the basin floor. Seelan's camera still ran, its lens cracked but recording. Images filled with static and shapes that moved between frames. Emre found Hale kneeling by the spiral's center, muttering that he had seen her ascend. The quartz fragments around them pulsed faintly, warm as living flesh. For a moment, every compass needle in camp turned inward, pointing not north, but down, toward the place Layla had stood. They searched through the day and found no trace of Layla. No footprints, no equipment, not even the scarf she always wore. Hale cataloged what data he could salvage, though each reading contradicted itself. Radiation, magnetism, oxygen, everything fluctuated as if reality had forgotten its measurements. Selin replayed the footage from the final moment, a figure of light, a column collapsing, and then static that spoke her name. Emre refused to watch. "She's not gone," he whispered. "She's underneath." But Hale, once a man of theory, now stood wordless before the impossible. His faith in reason eroded like the shorelines of the ancient world. That night, the hum returned, fainter, slower, but carrying rhythm like a heartbeat. It came not from the earth now, but from the relics Hale had gathered. Shards of quartz, scraps of metal, fragments of the spiral stones. When aligned, they began to vibrate softly, emitting faint light. Hale recorded the frequency. 27 hertz, exactly. Seelan turned the camera on him as he whispered, "She's still talking to us." Emre couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the lake full again. Layla walking upon its surface, the figure of Timoris behind her, both raising their hands as if to silence the world. Archaeology. By dawn, Hale's mind had crossed the line between discovery and devotion. He believed the temple had not been a monument but a machine, a resonance device meant to merge human consciousness with the divine. Layla succeeded, he murmured. She bridged the interval. Selin watched in silence as he placed his hand upon the largest quartz fragment, eyes closed, mouth moving in prayer or madness. The ground beneath them trembled again, subtle but steady. Emre ran from the ridge shouting. The water was returning, not from the sky, but from below. The spiral was reforming itself, drawing life from the valley's veins. The last transmission came at 4:12 a.m. Salen's final recording shows Hale kneeling in the spiral as water rises around him, whispering Layla's name like scripture. Emra's voice calls out in the background, lost in wind. The camera shakes, light flickers, and for a heartbeat. Only a heartbeat. La appears beside Hale, her form half light, half reflection. Her eyes meet the lens. Then the screen goes black. At sunrise, rescue teams arrive to find nothing but a new lake, smooth and still, with no sign of excavation or machinery. But on the water's surface, beneath the early light, the faintest pattern of spirals shimmered before vanishing once more. The footage recovered from Salen's final camera was incomplete. 37 minutes of flickering light, then darkness, then sound. When the audio was enhanced, it revealed heartbeats layered over stat. In some frames, the lake shimmered as if both full and empty, a paradox of reflection and absence. The rescue team's logs noted electrical interference, magnetic anomalies, and something else. Faint female singing, recorded at 27 hertz. The government sealed the basin within hours. Yet, when the footage was reviewed at the Institute, Hale's voice appeared on the soundtrack, though he had not been seen since that night. He said only one thing, she remembered us. Weeks passed, but the phenomena did not end. The new lake glowed faintly at night, visible from satellites as a pulse. Steady, rhythmic, alive. Locals refused to fish there, claiming to hear voices beneath the surface. Selen returned against orders, drawn by what she called unfinished work. Her camera recorded electromagnetic distortions that formed images, faces, patterns, spirals repeating across the water's skin. When she played the tape back at camp, a woman's voice whispered her name in Turkish. Not a hallucination, a recording. The same frequency the temple had sung. In the capital, the recordings circulated quietly among researchers who didn't believe in ghosts. One by one, their computer drives began to fail. The data corrupted, yet the sounds persisted. Low hums that grew louder at night, playing even after the machines were shut down. Selen sent a final transmission to the Institute, grainy video, her face lit only by the monitor's reflection. She said she could see the temple again under the lake's skin, as if it never left. Behind her, water crept across the floor, rising silently. The video ended mid-sentence. Months later, satellite images revealed that the entire basin had refilled, its surface now mirror-flat, its color dark as obsidian. No vegetation grew nearby. Seismic monitors placed around the region registered constant, low-frequency tremors, precisely 27 hertz, identical to the resonance once recorded in the temple's chamber. Some claimed it was merely geothermal activity. Others noted that every 7 days, the tremor aligned perfectly with sunset, as if marking ritual time. In the final field report, the last line in Hale's handwriting read, "History is not past, it is orbit." In the end, all that remained were fragments, a handful of recordings, Hale's scorched field journal, and one recovered photograph. Taken by Selen before she disappeared, it shows the lake under starlight mirror still, with 4 figures reflected upon its surface where only one had stood. Scholars call it an exposure error. Yet if you look closely, the reflections are reversed. Not mirror images, but originals staring upward through the water, waiting. Some say on windless nights the lake still glows, and if you listen closely, you can hear Layla whispering from beneath the surface. "We are still digging." Years later, Lake Eardeer is peaceful again. Tourists picnic along its restored shoreline, unaware of what sleeps below. The government report calls it a hydrogeological anomaly. No mention of the spiral, no word of the temple, no names of the lost. But sometimes, when the wind dies, the water becomes a perfect mirror. And in that stillness, the world seems briefly doubled, as if remembering itself. From above, the lake's contour remains subtly altered. A ring within a ring, the ghost of geometry. Somewhere deep beneath, sealed in perfect equilibrium, the temple of Ereshkigal rests again, humming a note too low for human ear. Discovery, after all, was never about finding. It was about being found. In an Istanbul archive, a graduate researcher restores a damaged reel labeled Ear Deer Expedition 2024. She threads it through the projector, expecting data. Instead, images bloom across the screen. The drained lake, the spiral foundation, and the moment before everything changed. Then a single frame appears that was never filmed. A veiled woman standing beside Lila, both looking directly into the lens. The reel ends abruptly, the film burning white in the gate. When she replays it, the frame is gone, replaced by black. Yet the hum remains, faint but distinct, vibrating through the reel itself. She smiles, unsure whether she's afraid or blessed. Meanwhile, across the valley, villagers tell new stories. They say the lake sings on quiet nights, its song soft as breathing. They say a woman of light walks the shoreline, her reflection never matching her steps. Fishermen leave offerings of copper coins on the banks, though none will admit why. The temple's legend folds into local memory, part myth, part warning. Yet the children born that year grow with a strange habit. They hum in their sleep, a low note in perfect harmony, as if the past has found a voice again through them. Deep beneath the surface, cameras once placed for seismic monitoring still transmit faint signals. Every few weeks, a pulse of data rises, fragments of images resembling architecture, and sometimes a face. One sequence shows a spiral corridor lined with moving shadows. Another reveals hands brushing along limestone walls. Scientists call it glitch, reflection, interference. But somewhere in that darkness, motion continues, slow and deliberate, like excavation. The work never stopped. It simply changed hands. In the end, the film closes where it began, with water, silence, and the pull of something unnamed. The lake holds its secret again, indifferent and eternal. Somewhere below, quartz veins pulse with the rhythm of an ancient dream, and the temple sleeps beneath its mirrored sky. Time folds neatly around itself, sealing the story in reflection. For those who listen closely, the hum remains, a heartbeat beneath the waves, the echo of discovery repeating forever. What the archaeologists found was never a ruin. It was a memory waiting to awaken again.